We're going to discuss probably the most important aspect of this course, and that is developing your educational philosophy. Your philosophy of education is the foundation in which all of your teaching will stem from. This supports you, and your philosophy may change and evolve over time, but ultimately your philosophy is the bedrock of which everything else is built upon. Look at this picture. Do you think it's beautiful? Or do you think it was done by a kindergartner? Let's think a little bit about, are people basically good or bad? What is reality? What is knowledge? Where did it come from? How do we come to know? What is truth? What is beauty, for example? What's the origin of the universe? Who or what is God? How do we learn? What is a value? As you can see, these are not very easy questions, and these types of questions have been plaguing mankind for years and years and years. But this is the nature of philosophy. Philosophy comes from the Greek word philos, which means love, and sophi, which means wisdom. Literally translated, the love of wisdom. So in other words, we use philosophy to reference general beliefs, concepts, attitudes, and later on in this course we'll see that philosophy may vary upon your cultural background. There are four major branches of philosophy that we're going to discuss. Metaphysics, which focuses on reality. Epistemology, the study of knowledge. This is what most of education is associated with. Axiology, values. Logic, which deals with reasoning. And you know that there's two types of logic, inductive and deductive logic. In the world of metaphysics, it's broken down into different areas. For example, ontology, that deals with reality. What is knowledge? Where does it come from? What are the universal truths that are being taught? Cosmology, the nature of the universe. Theology, the nature of religion, God, spirituality. Again, epistemology, knowledge. Axiology, this is the fun part to me. Values, ethics, aesthetics. The last portion of this course we'll talk about the fundamentals of ethics and why it's important as an educator to uphold ethical behavior. And then last but not least, logic and reasoning. Now, the question is, what makes your belief system? Well, I'm willing to bet if you toy around with this, your experiences, how you were raised, ideas and values perhaps sprung from your. And these are things we cannot get rid of. Your educational philosophy is made up on tradition, experiences, your own education, socialization, religious or spiritual beliefs. Now, the difference between general philosophy and educational philosophy seeks to answer the questions about how and who and what we teach. They relate to attitudes and perceptions regarding education. And these principles and foundations change over time as you grow and mature. We're presenting 5 schools of thought. There are other schools of thought, but just to keep things a little bit simple. Perennialism, essentialism, progressivism, social reconstructivism, and existentialist. They range in a spectrum where perennial, we see things like in the Dead Poet Society. That's a perennialist perspective. Essentialist, this is really what you've been dealing with for the last part of your career with No Child Left Behind, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Progressivism, lifelong learning, social reconstruction. the ability to reform society. For example, environmental education or social causes would fall into that category. And then existentialism, where the student determines what and how they're going to learn. Ironically, the World Wide Web is a good example of existentialism. Now, what we want you to do is to look at your philosophy. Think about the characteristics and the ways that you perceive these items. Look at building block 2.1 in your textbook on page 43. And having addressed those questions, you should come up with an idea of which philosophy best suits you. You can have multiple perspectives, but you can't be all five philosophical perspectives. And as you're going through that module, and as we start developing your educational philosophy paper, think about what should be taught, why should it be taught, how should it be taught, what's the role of the teacher, and ultimately what's the role of the student. With these items in mind, you'll start to develop your own educational philosophy.